Hi guys, my name is Katelyn and I'm one of the moderators for the Moms of Masterbooks group, and it's such a joy to get to be a part of the group. It's so encouraging and a wonderful place to come alongside other homeschoolers who are using Masterbooks and just remind ourselves we're on this journey together. So I have 4 kids and they range from kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. And a couple of them are pretty close in age, so we do combine some of their studies. So what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today is just some ideas for how to homeschool as a group, how to make some things a little easier on us as moms and dads. So the first thing we're going to talk about is seasons in homeschooling. I just recall when our oldest was going into kindergarten, our youngest was a newborn. We had 2 toddlers squeezed in there in the middle. And what I could do with my kindergartner at that time is far different than what I'm able to do with my kindergartner now, since he's the baby of the family. I just recall the potty training years, just the babies, the constant interruptions, and life looks a lot different now that they've all grown up a little bit, and that's okay. I really enjoyed that season and homeschooling during those sweet little years, but it's also really great that we can now do some of our studies together and learn and grow as a family. And I always just remind myself not to feel bad for what one child received versus what a different child received, because there's no way to make their education experience in their childhood equal. I just remind myself that each child gets a different mom or dad, because I'm a different person now that I've come along in our parenting journey. And so each child gets a different experience, and that's okay. So some of the benefits of learning together as a family is just the perspective that we learn together all the time. Everything we do in life is learning as a family. So we learn no matter where we are, because children are little sponges and they pick up on things whether we want them to or not. So even though your preschooler might not be using a formal curriculum, you can guarantee that they're still learning. They're soaking up whatever's in their environment. We've even had little preschoolers of ours come up to us and point out a picture in a book out of nowhere and say, bioluminescent, or at least they tried to say it. And it's just amazing because you can tell they were listening and soaking in what their older siblings were learning, even though they weren't necessarily right there in on the lesson. So that gave me like a great peace of mind when maybe I couldn't get to one of the younger ones that day. I just reminded myself we learn together as a family, whether that's sitting around the school table or driving in the car or everywhere we go, we're learning as a family. And that's really great. Another thing that is great about learning as a family are those unprompted lessons. So we could be driving and see something, it starts a conversation, and you never know where that's going to go, or a random question that they'll ask as we are driving down the road. It's a great opportunity to teach our children the way we would want to phrase that or say it, and help them, get a broader view of their world. One thing that we like to do is in the evening when my husband gets home, I like to have him ask the kids questions about their day and what they learned, because it's a sneaky little way to do a review time as a family. And I'm busy doing what I'm doing, but I'm overhearing all the things that they're recalling from their day and sharing with their dad, and they're excited about it. So it just reminds me and gives me a great peace of mind. Even when I didn't think they were listening, they probably were taking in a little more than I thought at the time. And so that sneaky evening review time is a great time to bring in dad and learn as a family. We definitely are more bonded as a family. I know my siblings are better friends than they would be if they had been spending their days apart from each other. So even though my older child might be learning something that's far above my younger children's level, they still are excited to look at the pictures or things like that. And all of those things really do bond them closer together. They're definitely each other's playmates and friends. And I hope that that continues into their adulthood, this foundation that we're laying in homeschooling. Another benefit to family homeschooling is that you have a bunch of little teachers. They can all end up helping each other and teaching each other. So when one of my middle children might be struggling to remember a definition or a part of speech, my older son can say, "Oh, I remember that. I did that last year," or "I did that 2 years ago." And he can help out. And he just does that naturally because we're all together. It's not something that I have to tell him to do, which is so great. So I love that they end up kind of coaching each other and helping each other a lot without me even having to do it all. So that's really wonderful. So we're going to get into the practical side of homeschooling as a whole family, trying to share some resources together and make that time a little more rich. So what we like to do is start off our day with a large group time before our children who are independent learners go off and do their independent studies. I do like to get us all together for prayer, for Bible time. One thing we've really enjoyed, since we do still have some young ones, is God is Really, Really Real. That's been a really great resource for us. It's short and sweet little questions about different topics in the Bible, and we can study that together. My kids love animals, so we've gone through these so many times, they probably almost have them memorized, but these devotions about animals relate to real life and some character things, and so they love going through this. I will have them look up in their Bible and find the chapter and the verse in that book. Even though it might take up some time, I think there's some value in the children getting into the Word of God themselves, being able to be comfortable finding where they need to be going, so that when I might not be around and maybe they're in Sunday school or some other setting, they're comfortable with finding the book of the Bible that we're talking about. Since my kids like animals, at that morning time, I also will just read about a random animal, as we call it. So these books have been great. I just let the kids pick out what animal we want to talk about that day, and I'll set it out, and they can all try to draw that animal, and some of their versions of it have been some of my favorite. It's kind of funny, but so cute. And so these are called the Marvels of Creation. So that's really a really great set. And then this big book, we got this from a scratch and dent sale one time, so it's a little rough, but it still works great. And so the God's Big Book of Animals is wonderful, beautiful color, and we can open up to an animal. I'm going to get away from the reptiles because that won't be as pretty. Okay, elephants. My daughter loves elephants. So we'll open this up and read all the facts about elephants. They'll try to draw the picture and look at the picture and all of that. And they actually do remember a lot of the facts that are shared as we go through that. And so sometimes they get a little bored, or maybe the reading is a little long, so I have to time that out. But we do let them play with little fidget toys sometimes as we go along our morning time together. So that's just kind of some of the things we'll do. Morning baskets from Masterbooks are a wonderful resource that families can use. They really do bring the family together. So those are something you could definitely work through. For this year, after we go through our morning time, we always try to start with our Bible time from there. And my 3rd and 6th grader this year are going to use the elementary apologetics together as a group. And they've never worked together before on any of their subjects, so it should be pretty interesting. My 3rd grader is just going to follow along. He doesn't have to do the written work, but he's going to be a part of the study. And then my 6th grader is going to be responsible for filling out the answers and things like that. And then my younger 2 are going to be in kindergarten and 2nd grade, and they're going to be paired together with Where Faith Grows. And I'm really excited for that course that we can use together with them. So we're trying some new age groupings this year for a couple of subjects, and I hope that goes well. So some ideas that we can do that are a little more on the practical side would be to task our oldest. I know they, as the oldest, do have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things being asked of them, but many times they almost don't mind helping out a little extra, because for our family, our oldest is pretty used to lending a helping hand. So oftentimes part of his assignment for the day is, can you just read a book to your brother so I can do your sister's lesson right now, or things like that. Sometimes if you have a wide enough age range, the oldest can actually really lead your younger one almost entirely on some of their subjects, depending on that age range. And that can really free up mom or dad to do other things with other students, but they're still learning together. I know whenever I teach something, I always end up learning more than if I just was listening. But when I have the responsibility of looking at the material ahead of time and teaching it, I retain that, even if it's at a younger level. So there's still merit to having our older ones help out. So when it comes to younger ones, they get a little shorter attention spans sometimes. So we end up using coloring books, Play-Doh, Magnadoodles, dry erase boards, puzzles, things that are special that they don't have access to every day. We just pull these things out during school time. So they're special and fresh, and something that is exciting for them to play with, and that can help kind of entertain them a little bit while we work with the older ones. Other things that can be helpful are some educational videos, if you find the right ones for you. Putting those on in the other room can give you about 30 minutes to help you with the other kiddos. Chores can come into play during the school day to occupy children while you're working with certain groups of the other students. And nap time, of course, we all know we love nap time. It's a great time to get some things done, or to just have some quiet time for yourself. Another thing we like to do is to pair playmates together, so that they can entertain each other and keep each other busy while mom might be working with someone else. And I always remind my kids that being bored is not really a bad thing. I don't really think that we have the capacity to be bored. I think it's more of a choice. But if they start to feel that way, I just remind them that, they need to use their imagination, and that's not such a bad thing. After a while, they always come up with something to do, and it's typically educational in nature. So I don't really mind if they run out of things to do, but typically they don't run out of things to do. So when it comes to teaching order, for what works for me is I have to do my large group together, our Bible study, and then we do youngest to oldest. So I will work with my youngest child because his attention span is a little shorter and he does still take naps. So you can always find out what works for you, but I do go youngest to oldest when we do our core studies. And then our oldest ends up going off on his own to do all of his individual work. And then I check back in with him at some point. Another way to do that would be ability-based. You might have a younger child that has the capacity to wait a while or play a little while you go and work with the student that really needs to get started first. So you kind of know the one that you need to start teaching first, and you can go with that and find what works with you. You can combine age ranges. So you can, if you have enough children, you can have a young group, a middle group, and an older group. And as you are doing those age combinations now and trying to combine different courses, it's important to consider where that will lead us down the road. Are we going to get into a bind down the road with the subject material if it's too much of a stretch for one or too easy for the other? So there are seasons, again, as I said, in homeschooling, where sometimes it works really well to combine ages. And then there does come a point where it's okay to release our older students to work independently. That doesn't mean they're off, somewhere by themselves. It just means that they have taken the reins and ownership on their own studies, and they can definitely share what they've learned with the group. But there does come a point where sometimes those age groupings do come to an end, and we congratulate our students for growing up and getting to work independently. So we always need to have age-appropriate expectations when we combine. One thing you can do is photocopy age-appropriate pages for the younger ones, depending on your topic. The young children can have a plain, inexpensive notebook that they can color in, that they can draw pictures in, or try to follow along with what you're doing. And it can be their own little scrapbook of sorts. You can get them stickers or special markers or pens or anything like that that only comes out at school time. That's really helpful for the little ones to feel included. You can highlight a word for them in their notebook that they can trace. They can cut and paste things into their notebook, and you can just use such a simple thing like a tiny notebook for a little one where they feel like they're doing school, but you're still able to focus on the students that need your full attention. So one of the first resources I'm going to go through today is The Wonders of Creation. So we use this book all the time. Sometimes we'll use this for looking up an animal. It has tons of topics in it that apply to all kinds of courses that Masterbooks offers. And so we'll get this out whether we're using Adventures in Creation or whether we're using God's Design for Life or a variety of other sciences. This is such a wonderful resource to have. So we do use this a lot, and it's part of one of our morning baskets that we use as well. And then I don't have all of them sitting right here, but this series is The Wonders of Creation. It's actually a 9-book multi-age format set, but it'll cover a lot of topics, and we get these out to reference from time to time. They're organized so you can read something to a younger student or something for an older student. And so if you're looking to combine ages for science, for example, you can use these extra resources to assign your older students more in-depth coursework. So the next thing we're going to talk about is we get a lot of questions about combining history. So I love the series America's Story. I'm really excited to get to use it this year for a couple of my kids that we're going to combine. We're going to be using America's Story 1 this year, and this is our textbook that we're going to be reading out of all of our lessons. These are divided into time frames in history. So America's Story 1 is from the ancient / Americas to the Great Gold Rush, and America's Story 2 picks up from that time frame where it leaves off and goes to the next time frame. So it's important to remember that when you're going to buy those and start using them, that they're just organized by time frame in history. So with America's Story 1, there's a lot of great resources that you can add on to. You can just use it as a read aloud and you don't have to use the teacher's guide, but I personally love the teacher's guide. It has the schedule and so many wonderful things in it that are really helpful to me as the teacher, and so many great thoughtful assignments and little projects that my kids will use. One thing you can do to expand it is this book, Meet the Chief. You can have your children, as they're going through and learning about different presidents, as you read through the America's Story series, you can look up which president we're talking about and assign them a little further research on that. As you go through and see when some of the states became states, you can go through books like the Star-Spangled State book, and we have the Elementary United States Geography as well. So we can use extra resources to create assignments. So if we're working with a wide age range of children beyond the recommended age, we can always spread it out and assign more or lighten the load a little bit at our own discretion. There's a couple of books here. There's In God We Trust and The Pledge of Allegiance. These are great books as well with just further information about these topics. And you can assign these to older children or assign them a book report if you want. You can always find ways and resources to expand what we're doing. America's Story does come with timelines in the back of the book, but if you want to have a more enhanced timeline, you can buy the timeline packs that come full color and really nice. You can cut them out and put them on the wall on your timeline. For younger children, you can even have them draw their own copy of what that picture would look like, and they can paste that up there too. But if you're a little short on space, like some of us are, we like to use this book, Wonders of Old. It's actually a timeline in a book format, and so You can cut out your timeline pages and paste it right where you are. This can actually be, a timeline can be such a great family bonding experiment or activity because everybody can contribute. So maybe older brother is already in middle school and working in World Story. Well, if you have one family timeline where everybody's adding to what they're learning, where they are in history, it can become a neat representation of what everyone's learning, and it's like a big compilation. Other things that you can do with America's Story, you can learn patriotic songs. You can try to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. There are so many extension activities you can come up with to learn as a family. So the next thing would be the My Story series. We just got done with My Story this year. My Story is recommended for first grade, second grade, but you can always use it for a little bit older students as well. If you add on a few resources, you can always deepen and expand those assignments. So we just got done using this, and you travel all over the world in a different type of transportation, and it's really fun. It really opened my kids' eyes to a world beyond their front door, if you will. And so we also used the Passport to the World resource with that, and that was really fun. It does come with a passport booklet and little stickers, and so if you have multiple students using that, you can actually add on extra passport booklets with stickers. We also use the Children's Atlas of God's World, so when we're looking up or studying a place that we're going through in our studies, we will always try to look that up or look on a globe and find that. Other ideas are that you can use a world map and mark your travels as you go through your My Story books or your elementary geography. Older students, you can assign reading for them from the book Great for God, which is a book about different missionaries and the places that they've served. So you can assign that your students study more about that region. And then there's also these really awesome DVDs called Wild Brothers, where they live as missionaries in other parts of the world. And you can watch that as a family, and you can assign another assignment for researching more about that region. So the Let's Talk Science series is one of our favorites as well. We really like the series from Masterbooks because it takes the thinking out of it. I know what we're going to do next. We just do the next book in this series. So we've been through Adventures in Creation. We're going to start Adventures in the World Around Me when it's released for our youngest. We're really excited about that. So we love this series. This is so great because it's going to teach about, let me find it here for us. So here, when we're learning about the layers of the atmosphere, a really neat resource is the Big Book of Earth and Sky. Just kind of holding this up because I have the fold out version. But we can use the Big Book of Earth and Sky to help us look through a lot of the similar information. So here in the first page, we have the layers of the atmosphere. And this is actually a big fold out that my kids love looking through. And then when we get through other things, we have like the water cycle. We find the water cycle in here. So there are a lot of like great extension resources that Masterbooks offers that we can share as a family. So we're not just limited to what the schedule says. We have the freedom to, as Randy says, be the carpenter and use the curriculum as a tool. And we can make adaptations that work best for us, whether that's for us as the teacher or what's best for our students. And one of the last things I was going to talk about is the God's Design for Life and God's Design for Heaven and Earth. That is a science series that you can use and combine with older and younger students if you choose. There is an alternate schedule available. And my kids are also really excited about the Masterbooks Academy videos that we're going to add on to our studies. They like watching them together. Even my 6th grader will watch his kindergarten brother on his Simply K videos. And while they are very beneath the 6th grade level, my son is thoroughly entertained by them and loves coming over and watching them. So they really do like to learn together. But one of the things they're excited about the most is the new PE course that we can do together through Masterbooks Academy. So if you haven't been able to view that, you should definitely check it out. So I hope some of these ideas were helpful to you as you think of ways to save time, combine activities, combine lessons, and make learning flow and work for you as a family. We're all in different seasons of our homeschooling, so not one is going to look like the next, but I hope that we can urge each other on and encourage each other in our journey as we go and continue to share ideas. The Masterbooks app is another great place where people can share ideas and encourage each other in their homeschool journey. There's a really sweet friend from my church who has already homeschooled her kids, and they're grown. And most of the time when I see her, she always gives me a big hug and a lot of encouragement, which means a lot. And she always shares this verse with me. It is Isaiah 40:11, and it says, "He will feed his flock like a shepherd, and will gather the lambs in his arm, and carry them in his bosom, and will gently lead those who have their young." She always tells me he will gently lead those who have their young. And it just gives me the greatest peace that I'm not all on my own here. God is gently leading me as I gently lead my children. He will gently lead you as you lead your children closer to him. If your schedule's interrupted and your plans are destroyed, that's okay. Even short lessons count as lessons. No one ever said that homeschooling was easy or pretty or perfect. So we can use these moments to come to God in prayer as a family and remind ourselves that do-overs have no limit. We're in this together as a family, and we're going to keep on learning. Thanks for letting me share with you guys today. Hope you have a wonderful day.